Okay. Okay. The deal is this. Our people assume that we came from Africa, not knowing that we have been here on this continent for almost 25,000 years since the paleo time frame era. And in that time frame, we scattered throughout the Southwest. It appears that our people, uh, with the help of King Solomon, he had a big navy. With his navy, they were able to circumvent the whole globe. And it appears that in the Americas, they came up through the Rio Grande. That's why, to this day, the Europeans do not want us in the Rio Grande. They don't want us in the Grand Canyon. Because if you go down there, you will find ancient cities, ancient glyphs, ancient all kinds of things showing that there was other people from the Middle East or Greater Africa that was already here. So it shows, and if you do the history and the geography, it shows you that our people sailed up the Rio all the way to Utah, through New Mexico, all the way up to Utah. So, you'll find our artifacts and things in mines and hidden in lead mines and places that are, and we're talking about before the Native Americans. We're talking about before them, you know, before they even got themselves together, we were already here. And people don't seem to understand this. Now, my particular family, for some reason, left the West and walked to the East. And about, and there's a whole bunch of, a whole footload there about the things that they did. They packed up the camels and went east. And I tripped because I said, pack up the camels. There ain't no camels in North America, but if you research, you'll find out that there were once camels in North America. And they said they got to the prairie and the big cats attacked them to kill the camels. And I said, big cats? There ain't no tigers in that, but no, what it was saber-toothed tigers that roamed the prairies, killing the buffalo and anything else that was in there that they could eat. And then they talked about getting to the Great River and spending, I don't know how many years or whatever trying to get across because they had to build a raft. Well, that had to be the Mississippi. And at the same time, there was tribes and people all along the Mississippi that they had to keep, what's the word? They had to keep fighting against and protecting themselves for while it was there. So they eventually had to hurry and get those rafts completed so they could get across the Mississippi. And when they got across the Mississippi, there was other groups on the other side, the same thing. So it was very hostile. The Mississippi was a very hostile place because it seemed like all the tribes of North America was on the Mississippi River. So from there, they went further east, and they said they spent 3 days and night. Now, that made no sense to me all while I was a little young, but I had 2 children that I took to the mountains in the Alleghenies up in Maryland, and I stopped to an Indian trading post on the way back. And the Indian told me, he said, there's caverns that run under Georgia and Tennessee and North Carolina, Virginia, and you can just walk from Georgia all the way up towards Pennsylvania without even coming above ground. I said, wow, that must have been what they were talking about, the caverns. They spent 3 days in the caverns. And when they came out, there was a hostile group that chased them all the way down to the Piedmont or the sand, which probably felt like if it was sand dirt, it was worthless. But they chased them all the way to the sandy port of Carolinas. And that's where they stayed, and that's where they are till to this day. Now, around 1524, the first European came to the eastern seaboard. His name was Giovanni di Veranzio, and he described the natives that he met in the Carolinas as Ethiopian, some with Middle Eastern or greater African type wardrobe and customs. And he said that one of the traits of those people were they were very, very fast runners. Now, I thought that was very interesting because I happen to be a 2-time Olympic qualifier, 12-time Division I NCAA champion, 1, 2, and relay teams, a Hall of Fame, 2 Hall of Famers, and the grand what is it? The Pan American Games finalist. Okay, I think I came in fourth back then. So I ran 30 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour my top speed, and I basically with each step that I carried, I covered 11 feet each step. That's how much ground I carried. You know, they wanted me for football, but
I mean, your father the same way or something like that.
My father, my cousins, my aunts, you know, my children, you know, all of them. You know, my father was so bad that he could run forwards or backwards at the same speed and not even slow up. To this day, the records that my father and his team set have never been broken by NFL, college teams, or nobody. They haven't even broken their records. My father's in the Hall of Fame in the Carolinas too. You know, so that trait that he mentioned that we had back in 1524, we have it still to this day. You know, but anyway, that was just one thing about it. And then also further, just probably a few years later, there was a first European colony called the Lost Colony, and that was Sir Walter Raleigh brought these people on to the shore, and it feels that the first governor and the first child that was born also possibly my relatives. But it shows that during that time frame, the English came over, but they could not figure out how was these native people able to make iron and iron in 3 weeks where it took them months. That's because the Hebrew metalsmith, you know, that they had. So they basically kept that a secret and would let the other European colonists know that there was people, natives on the islands or on the continent that knew about making metals because they used the metal to make their cannons. You know, so they basically took our land and killed us. And from my great-great-grandmother, she said that in 1711, they had a massacre in the Carolinas called the Tuscarora Wars.